Welcome to the Taking the Lead podcast, where we empower people to be unstoppable. I'm Christina Hepner with my co-hosts Leslie Haskins and Timothy Cunio. Timothy, you were telling us about a trip that you just went on recently. Where did you go?
I went to the Maryland. I went to the MD22W Leader Dog rallies and had a great time. And the crazy thing is I met a bunch of Leader Dog clients up there. One of them happened to be in my class the year I got Glacier. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
My wife was walking around talking, and she saw a guide dog, and she started talking to the guy, and the name of the dog was familiar. So she came over and got me, and it was Bill. I said, Bill, you were in my class 5 years ago. And so it was a shocker.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny.
Yeah, and had no idea that he would be there. And then I ran into Tom, who was a client, just got his dog recently.
Okay.
And he heard that I was going to be in the neighborhood. And so he found out where I was going to be and came and met me. It was great to meet him. He listened to the podcast. So hello, Tom. And then I had 3 dogs, future Leader dogs. 2 of them, the puppy raiser, they heard my speeches. And so they decided to be a puppy raiser. So I got to meet both dogs that I helped influence for them. It was great. It was a great visit to be with the Lions that week.
It sounds like it. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. We raised a lot of money for Leader Dog, and that was the most important thing.
Yeah, but getting people into the organization, that's fun too. You get to talk to people that you directly impacted. Yes. I mean, that's a really big deal, Timothy.
But running into the Bill it was freaky. You never think you're going to see these people ever again.
Yeah.
And there he is, So it was wild.
Do they all live in Maryland, or were they all there for the convention?
One drove from Pennsylvania, so she drove way out of her way.
Yeah.
And then the other one was there in the district with the other dog. So, and Bill, he lives just about 30 minutes from where I was, so he's in that district also. And the other guy just heard that I was going to be there, So they were all right there.
Drawing a crowd. You got like a fan base, which you totally do. People are always so excited to meet you and asking if you're around or on campus or when you'll be on campus next. So,
well, if somebody wants to buy my poster, I'll start selling it on Amazon.
Oh my!
All right, calm down now, Timothy.
Oh my! But Christina and I get the first copy.
But it was a great visit, and it was a blessing to see everybody and to experience it. And while we were there, we joined the Maryland Lions Club. So me and Cheryl are now Lions in that district. So that was another great opportunity.
How does that?
Yeah.
Well,
Jinx boat.
Well, all the clients, multiple district 22, that's Maryland and Delaware, they do a lot for Leader Dog. Mm-hmm. They do a lot. So I wanted to be a part of that district because they do so much for me and everybody else. So I want to be a part of that. So we joined. So it was an honor. Now we are Lions of that district.
So how does that work when you live in Georgia?
Yeah.
We're going to find out. We'll be doing the meetings via Zoom. Me doing the podcast and other stuff counts for my public stuff that I need to do for helping the community and stuff. So we're going to find out, and I'm excited about it.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's
Are you guys going to move to Maryland now? Is that a hint?
They have a winter there. They have a winter there. You know how I'm about winter.
I know.
No, but I love Maryland. I love Delaware. And it's a beautiful part of the country. While we were there, we went to Gettysburg. It was just awesome.
Yeah.
And, it's very pretty. And if you ever get a chance to go to Maryland, everybody should go to Maryland.
Did you have like a lobster roll? Isn't that like what?
No, crab cakes. Oh,
crab
my
cakes.
gosh. Yeah, Cheryl had crab every day, just about. It was awesome food up there. They love their seafood in Maryland.
Yeah. I've always said I wanted to live on the East Coast just because of the seafood.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
I thought it was great. I always was like, that's where I'm going to end up. But here I am in Michigan.
You in Michigan. Well, there's a big Great Lake near you.
That's true.
There it is. True. But
any direction you want to go. Well, that's awesome, Timothy. Thank you for sharing. And I'm so glad you were able to run into those individuals. I think that's so fun to connect and share experiences and all that good stuff. So as always, Timothy, we are in awe of you, and we thank you for all of the work that you do. Truly, you are an inspiration to the organization. We're just really lucky to have you. So thank you.
Yeah, you are.
Oh my gosh, Timothy.
I kid. I'm very humble. It's a
just-
bless. I love doing this. I think that I'm helping others, and that gives me a purpose, and I'm enjoying it. So
Absolutely. Well, enough of you moving to Maryland. We're going to hop right in it today because our guest is newer to Leader Dog, but not so new to advocacy.
Yes, Erica is a dedicated and experienced educator who has worked with students and individuals of all ages and varying abilities. Erica is passionate about advocacy and chairs the Committee on Disabilities for the town of Amherst, New York, and works part-time as a project assistant at the Institute on Disability Awareness at Niagara University.
Erica, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast this morning. I followed your story while you were at Leader Dog, but let's start. What is your journey with blindness? What do you got going on with it?
Well, first of all, Timothy, thank you so much for having me today. It's such a pleasure to be able to join the big leagues and talk to some famous Leader Dog people. So, my journey to blindness is like everything else in my life, very unique. I was diagnosed in 2011 with a rare and progressive neuromuscular disease. It's called mitochondrial disease. And at the time I was diagnosed, we did not expect it to have any impact on my vision. And it had some impact on, other parts of my life and other parts of my body, but the vision issues didn't start until around, I would say maybe 2016 or so. Yeah, so maybe around 2016, and I started having some difficulty with night vision, and eventually things progressed from there. So when I was I want to say probably around 2021 is when I was officially declared legally blind. So it's been an interesting journey, and I had to do a lot of self-advocacy from the point of being diagnosed with the mitochondrial disease, and then self-advocacy with my vision, because the disease that I have is so rare that it's very difficult to find even people within the medical community who know where to direct you and how to help you. And I knew what I needed, but I didn't quite know how to find those things.
Absolutely. That can be incredibly challenging. So what motivated you, I guess, because that's kind of a pivotal moment, right? Like you can kind of sulk into it and not seek or advocate or push for services. What kept you going? What really motivated you to continue and start all the advocacy?
That's such a great question. I think what motivated me in terms of pursuing the self-advocacy and really just kind of, as they say, like pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, was just, I was really determined to be able to live as independent and as, we'll say, typical, in air quotes, as typical life as possible. And I found that anytime I would go to the doctors or have the conversations with the professionals and get, the bad news and the not so, great prognosis or whatever, they would always say, you have a really good attitude, and that is so important. So keep that up. And I wanted to, make sure that I was getting the things that I needed. And eventually, once I was comfortable advocating for myself, that advocacy turned into advocating for other people within my community. And my partnership with my first service dog was really instrumental in kind of kicking that advocacy into high gear, because he gave me such a new lease on life and really expanded my independence. I was able to do things with him that I had only dreamt of for years at that point.
Yeah, Erica, I got the same example with Glacier. It just seemed like when we got your first guide dog, it's just like the whole world just opened up. And I'm glad you had a good attitude about that, because most people don't. I was one of those people that didn't when I was told about my RP. But we all need to realize life is not over with, and we dictate our life, even with this diagnosis. And I'm glad you was able to do that.
It's very true, Tim. It's quite a journey. It really is. I think that one of the most difficult parts is the days where you find yourself in a situation that reminds you of limitations. But everybody has limitations, and remembering that, I think, is important too.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things we talk about all the time too, is sometimes blindness is a very obvious disability, right? So like if you're traveling with a cane or with a service dog, people identify you that you have a disability. But like you're saying, so many people have limitations and other things going on that aren't always as visible. And we always talk about like, maybe if somebody is looking at you, maybe they just really enjoy your shirt or you've got a super cute haircut or whatever it is. And so, but it's hard to kind of be in that mindset sometimes. And you and Timothy are such great examples of staying positive and pushing and advocating for education. But one of the things we have written down here is the Town of Amherst Committee on Disabilities and the role there. Can you tell us a little bit about the things that you did with that?
Sure, absolutely. So I joined the Committee on Disabilities in 2021, and I joined as a member. And like most things in my life, I start small and then I go real big, real fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it was only, I was about a year and they're like, would you like to run for chair? Sure, why not? But, it's funny. So I ended up finding out about that. I've always been really good at networking. And that networking really stemmed again from the advocacy, from kind of looking around and realizing, I have an unmet need personally.
Mm-hmm.
I need to fix this. And then I need to see how I can help others doing the same. And I was having some trouble with access issues and just community education regarding working my first service dog. And through a series of phone calls, I ended up connected with who was a man who is now my boss at Niagara University. And we'll talk about that later too. And he said, you live in Amherst. Do you know about the Committee on Disabilities? And I went, no, but I'd like to. So I ended up on this committee, and our role there is to work alongside the town of Amherst and make sure that we are doing the absolute best we can to make Western New York inclusive and accessible to people with disabilities and their families. So we study town facilities, we study up and coming projects to make sure that they are meeting, not just the ADA, because we know that the ADA is bare minimum in terms of compliance. Our goal is to go above and beyond. How can we, really make our community an example? And I think that the town of Amherst does a great job with that. We have a nice committee. We have people with disabilities. We have people who have family with disabilities, and we have professionals in the community. We have a wonderful liaison who's on the town board. And some of the projects that we've worked on in the past couple of years have been making sure that emergency phones on our local bike path are accessible to people with disabilities. We have collaborated on inclusive playground projects to make sure that there are there's equipment available for children with varying disabilities, including vision impairments and blindness. Children who use wheelchairs so they can experience things like swings and zip lines, right here in our community. We've also done a lot with pedestrian travel. And for those of you who are blind and visually impaired, how difficult it can be to just get down a sidewalk sometimes. So that is something that we take very seriously. And we work alongside some wonderful people in the town. We have liaisons with the local police department and other agencies. And it's really just all about spreading awareness, advocacy, and education within the community. We've done a lot on service dog etiquette. We've talked about how to make multimedia for local businesses accessible to people with varying disabilities, including blindness and vision impairments as well. And it's great work. It's all volunteer. And I'm very lucky. I have a wonderful co-chair as well, who's also a strong advocate in the community. And my boss from Niagara University is also a member. So we go back real far. It was founded in 2007, and we're going strong in our community here.
That is amazing to be able to do so much and have so many connections within your community, and your community to be so open to that as well. I know you mentioned that your boss is on that committee as well. So tell us a little bit about what you do at Niagara University and how you got started there.
So that's a really fun story too. When I was advocating for myself and making the phone calls that I talked about earlier, in terms of spreading some more awareness and getting some education out there in my community regarding working with a service dog, my boss was one of the gentlemen that I was connected with on the phone. And he and I were talking a little bit, and he said, I run this disability awareness training program. I founded this in 2004. I'm working out of Niagara University. We have a disability awareness training program at Niagara University now. And he goes, I would really love to have you as an employee here. Like, I'd love to be able to hire you. We're not quite expanded yet, but we will be in the next year or so. And sure enough, about a year or so later, he came around and offered me a job working for the disability awareness training program at NU. And the history of that program, like I said, was founded in 2004, and it started with a first responder training. So the role of the program was really to train police, probation officers, the fire departments, ambulance crew, so EMS, paramedics, and how to interact with people with varying disabilities who were in the middle of a crisis or having a medical emergency. As we know, that's a really scary time for anybody, but particularly when you have any sort of limitation, I think we find that it's difficult enough navigating the general public. And then when you're in a crisis, it can be even more challenging. So that's how the program got started. And now we are expanding, and we've formed the Institute on Disability Awareness at NU. And that'll have been launched on May 28th by the time this podcast airs. So my role there as project assistant is doing research. It's writing materials for trainings that we provide, and increasing awareness, and helping not just the general public, but specific subsets of the public to better understand and work with people who have disabilities.
Well, it sounds like, Erica, you're doing a fabulous job there. Anybody can be an advocate. This world that we live in is a sighted world, and they don't understand what we need as visually impaired people. So the only way to change it is for you to speak out, like I did in my town, or you can do anywhere across the country. I had to call the state, or I had to call the city, and we had the crosswalks, the audible crosswalks installed, because I had to do that. I called and I made that suggestion. And so my advocacy will be helping somebody else in this town. So it's great that you're doing this kind of work. What is this this playground? I'm reading on your bio that there's a inclusive playground. What is that all about?
So, that's such a great question, Timothy. So the inclusive playground, we actually have a couple in the Western New York area, and we have one in Amherst that called the Billy Wilson Playground, and that was founded a few years ago. And we had the Committee on Disabilities was instrumental in working alongside the town architect and the contractors who built the playground in terms of giving feedback on how to make that playground accessible. But we're working on a new project right now, and that's the Amherst Central Park project that will also have a very large and inclusive playground as well. And we just met 2 months ago with our town architect and with the director from the Youth and Recreation Department at the town of Amherst, and with some of the builders and architects from Parkitects. And they're, wonderful, wonderful people. So cool to just, think about and visualize all the great things that they want to be including in the playground. They talked about some of the swings where, a child who uses a wheelchair can roll their chair onto a platform and be able to experience the sensation of being on a tire swing. We talked about having a little, almost like little huts. They look like colorful igloos in a way, for a child who has sensory needs to be able to take a break from the hustle and bustle of the playground. And we also talked about putting a tactile and a braille images, for example, like a fireman series where a child could feel, the outline of the fire boot or the fire hat or the hose, and have the braille lettering under there. And we're trying to work on incorporating American Sign Language into the playground as well. So this is really a project where everyone in the community, regardless of how they choose to or are able to experience play, can participate and just have fun with their friends and with their families.
Yeah, that is amazing. I think there should be more playgrounds exactly like that. But let's kind of move. We're quickly going real fast through this, but I wanted to circle back on your time at Leader Dog. So if you can tell us, how did you find Leader Dog, and why did you choose to come to us for services?
Oh, wow. That is such a great question. So how did I find out about Leader Dog and why did I choose Leader Dog? So my story, with most things in my life, is very unique. My first service dog was from Canine Companions in Medford, New York, and his name was Jet. And Jet was a very unique dog. And when I was partnered with him, I had some vision issues, but not to the extent that I was legally blind. As I progressively lost my vision during the early, years of our partnership, we were able to successfully cross-train Jet to do guide work, which is an anomaly in and of itself. But when we were looking towards a successor dog, we were thinking, a needle in a haystack. Let's not, put our eggs in that basket again. As much as I would have loved to have worked with Canine Companions, I can't say enough about the wonderful work that they do. It just was very clear that it would make more sense to go straight to a guide dog organization. And that's what my team felt was going to be. I would be best served. And so unfortunately, in the fall of 2022, Jet was diagnosed at the age of 6 with a really rare cancer. And he passed away not even two and a half months later. So it was a horrible, losing that independence and the trauma and the grief of going through such a major loss. I mean, it hit me and it hit my family really, really hard. Jet was instrumental in terms of, the reason why I was able to do these things, get a part-time job, do advocacy work in the community. I was very much, housebound before that. I wasn't able to be out and about and doing things without that assistance. And he was a huge reason why I was able to be as independent as I was. So looking forward to a successor, I found myself very overwhelmed. I have my dog is sick and we know he's not going to be with me much longer. And you're also thinking, like, now what am I going to do next? Like, what happens now? Where do we go from here? So I knew absolutely nothing about the guide dog programs. And I started researching them and I applied to a few. And the more conversations I'm having with these schools, the more I'm like, is this what things are like? Like, I don't really know if I really want to do this anymore. Like, I can't, why don't we just fast forward or rewind, whatever, and things just need to go back to the way they were. Like, you kind of get into a state where you feel like, I don't even want to go through this anymore. Like, I don't want this to be the reality. Like, let's just press the pause button. And then my social worker through VIA of Western New York, which is a visually impaired achievement of Western New York, she said, why don't you look into Leader Dog? And I went, what's a Leader Dog? So I had never heard of you guys before. And I did some research and I picked up the phone and I called you guys. And I was so surprised when I got a call back, because nowadays you make phone calls and nobody calls to you anymore. You just kind of your messages get lost in the ethers. But not only did I get a call back, but I got to have a very nice, lengthy conversation with Emily Sharp from the training department. And I told her about Jet. And I told her about my experience with him and all the things that we'd done together. And we talked about the training philosophy at Leader. And we talked about, just the school environment and community in general. And it just sounded like the most perfect fit for me. It really did. She talked about her dogs and the types of dogs that you guys train. And one of the things that was really important to me was working with a school that had a force-free environment, that worked with the animals with compassion, and that put animal welfare as a priority. And I really felt like talking to Emily that that was a value that leader held very closely. And I wanted to be a part of that. And she just, having that conversation with her in the middle of everything that was going on with Jet it was a reassuring conversation. I felt like I was talking to someone who really truly understood just the amount of independence and how important these dogs are to our lives. And I think that being a part of a family community like that, someone that really gets it, that was very important to me. So I ended up sending in my application. We made our little video, and I will never forget Emily. She called me to let me know that I was accepted into Leader Dog. And she goes, we watched your videos with Jet. And she said that was some of the most beautiful guide work that we had seen. And it was so cool that you guys did that independently. And we're so happy to welcome you, into the Leader family. So, we fast forward to January then. So it took about a year to get matched, to get that call. And Laura called me on December 13th. So right before Christmas, the most wonderful Christmas gift, because my first Christmas, with Jet, with him being sick, he died a few days after Christmas. So that was a very hard holiday. And to have, a year later, to have, you don't expect that's where you'll be in a year, is getting that magical phone call. And if December 13th is actually the feast day of St. Lucy, who's the patron saint of the blind and visually impaired in the Italian and Swedish communities. And Laura knew this because I made the comment to her. I said, oh my gosh, it's the feast of St. Lucy. And she went, I know.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
It was very cool. So, she knew, she was so excited, to call me and everything. And it felt like it was meant to be. And we went through the holiday, we went through Christmas, this past Christmas, with just feeling like a weight had been lifted off of our shoulders, because that year without my dog was so hard, and you don't know what's going to happen next, like, who are they going to find for you? Who is this new successor going to be? So packed my bags in the middle of winter, and I'm from Buffalo. So my flight out to Leader ended up being canceled because it hadn't snowed all winter, but the first blizzard of the season hit the weekend that I had to leave for Leader. So we were delayed a day, and I'm not a great flyer. I'm a real nervous flyer, so that didn't really help. But I got to campus, I got there, and just right away felt very much at home. It felt independent. I felt like I was respected and treated as an adult who knew what my needs were and knew how to advocate for myself. And everybody just treated me like family. And it automatically felt like this was where I was meant to be. We had a rough few days. The dog that I had been matched with made it clear very quickly that this wasn't the gig that she was up for. And they weren't really sure if we were going to be able to, match me with another dog then, or if I'd have to go home and wait a little bit longer. And at that point, you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's been such a crazy, hard, and difficult journey this year. And just to have more, adversity to have to overcome. And I remember when, that afternoon, it was a couple days after match day, and I was sitting in my room, and I was talking to Andrea, and I mean, again, just so wonderful. And she said, she's like, are you okay, Erica? We promised we're going to take care of you, but are you okay right now? I said, Andy, I am nothing if not comfortable with adversity. That's been my whole life. We will figure it out. I know we will. And my instructor came in, he said, I have good news for you. He goes, I think we have a dog that we can give you tonight.
Oh my gosh.
And see how it goes. And it was an unusual situation. He was preparing, my dog was actually preparing for the next month's class. So he got to graduate a little early. and his name is Fozzie. He is a
Aw.
German Shepherd lab mix. And it was just it was a crazy couple of days. It was very emotional. It's very difficult to, you go and you've got you're so hopeful, and then things just don't always go the way they're supposed to, but that's life, you know? But I knew I was in good hands, and I trusted Leader. And that's a hard trust. You don't want to misplace that trust. You're trusting, strangers with your independence, with your safety. And it was a trust that was very well placed, because Fozzie has turned out to be everything I asked for, everything I needed at this time of my life. And we spent the rest of class going, it had to have been some sort of divine intervention
Yes.
that Jet had arranged somehow to make sure that Fozzie and I ended up together. So that was my experience with getting Fozzie. And we had, it was a great class. I look back on my experience with Canine Companions and getting my first dog, and I feel like those, 2 weeks that I was there at team training, they were some of the best 2 weeks of my life. And I felt the same way about Leader. Those were some of the best 2 weeks of my life. I felt like part of a family. I felt like I was in great hands. I felt like I was, allowed to handle and, work with my dog in the compassionate ways that I was used to training, and I was supported in all those areas. And that's just so important, to find a school that, meshes with your morals and is there that you're proud to represent too. I wanted to go to a program where I could leave and say, I am really proud to be part of this family. And when someone comes up and says, oh my gosh, where did you get that wonderfully trained dog from? I can say, oh, he's from Leader Dogs. That's important to me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you had a positive experience and that you continued to stay positive during what could be a very, challenging and upsetting situation. So you continuing to have the faith in the organization is greatly appreciated. But Erica, we want to thank you for joining us and sharing all the things that you have been up to and doing in your experience with Leader Dog. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful talking to you, for sure.
And thank you to our listeners for listening to the Taking the Lead podcast. I'm Leslie Hoskins with hosts Timothy Cunio and Christina Hepner. We hope you enjoyed learning about Erica and her advocacy efforts. Please join us next time as we continue to dive into the world of blindness.
And if you'd like to learn more about applying to our free services at Leader Dog, you can head to leaderdog.org or call us at 888-777-5332. And don't forget, you can reach us at takingthelead@leaderdog.org with any questions or ideas. If you like today's podcast, make sure to hit subscribe and check us out wherever podcasts stream.